In this tutorial, I'm going to show you more on statements. So we are going to see when we can combine the if, and or statements. For illustration purpose, on the combination of the if and the and statement, let's consider a program that asks a student mark, and if his mark is between 10 and 20, the program should print "you have succeeded." And if his mark is between 0 and 10, the program will print "you haven't succeeded." And if the mark is not between 0 and 20, the program should say your mark must be between 0 and 10. So let's see how we can do this in Python. I go in my Hello World project. I erase what we saw in the first part. Beautiful. Now I want to create a variable called mark, and you remember that variable we should ask him from the user, so you should use the built-in function input. So we are going to ask to the user, and we are going to say what's your mark. Remember that the input function return the values in a string type, so we have to convert the mark, for example, in a float type, so that we can have a number. If the value of the mark is between 10 and 20, the program will print "you have succeeded." So we say if the mark is, the fact that it is between 10 and 20, it means that the mark is less than, it means that the mark is less than 20. And this is what I wanted to introduce. The mark, since it is between 10 and 20, so the mark is greater than 10. I put 2 points to say then the program should print "you have succeeded." The second condition is when the mark is between 0 and 10. So in this case, since we have more than 2 conditions, we say that when we have more than 2 conditions, we use the elif for the intermediate conditions. So in this case, we are going to use the elif and say if the mark is greater than 0 and the mark is lower than 10, then the program should print "you haven't succeeded." Now, if the mark is not between 10 and 20, and if it is not also between 0 and 10, it means that the user has provided a wrong value. So the program should print in that your mark must be between 0 and 20. Now look at this condition. It says that if the mark, for example, is strictly greater than 10, then the student has succeeded. But if the student has 10, he has also succeeded. So it means that this condition is also true if the mark is also equal to 10. And if the student has 20, it means that he has succeeded. So this condition is also true if the mark is equal to 20. And if the student has 0, he has failed. So it's not an error in that case. Therefore, if the mark is greater or equal to 0, and if the mark is strictly less than 10, let's run the program and see what we get. So it asks what's your mark. I say, for example, 12, and I press enter. So it is printed "you have succeeded." If I run again, for example, and it says what's your mark, I say -12, for example, and I press enter. It says your mark must be between 0 and 20 because -12 is not between that values. So that's how we can use combine statements in Python. Now consider the case where the mark is not in an interval, but it is a discrete value. For example, if you have 10 or you have 20, it means that you have succeeded. And if you have 0 or you have 5, it means that you haven't succeeded. Here's a way to write the algorithm. If his mark is 10 or 20, the program should print you have succeeded. And if his mark is 0 or 5, it prints you haven't succeeded. So going back in the Hello World project, it's the same. The mark is still defined as an input value and converted to a float type. Then here, instead of using the AND, we are going to use, as we said, the OR. And here is not an interval no more, but it is a value, a discrete value, 20, if the mark is 20, or if the mark is 10, the program should print you have succeeded. Always remember that when PyCharm underlines something as red, it means that there is a problem. So here, what is the problem? It's about the equal. The equal, as I told you in the first part, it is in fact 2 equal, because we want that the left value must be the same type as the right value. So I put again the equal. I do the same here. If the mark is equal to 0 or the mark is equal to 5, then the program should print you haven't succeeded. And if it is different from this value of 20 or 10, and if it is different from this value of 0 and 5, the program should print your mark must be 0, 5, 10 or 20. So let's run the code and see what we get. So what's your mark? I say, for example, 10, and if I press enter, the program says you have succeeded. But if I run again, I give, for example, another number, let's say 3, and I press enter, the program will say your mark must be between 0, 5 and 10 and 20, because my mark is not 20, it's not 10, it's not 0, it's not 5. So neither this condition is satisfied nor this condition. That's why the statement execute directly the else part.